First of all, thank you for braving the weather to get here, because walking through it is not a lot. I look like I took a bath getting over here, and my umbrella's in 50 pieces as we speak, although it's not a very expensive umbrella. So this is the first time we've done this. How many people have been to the financial literacy lecture series before? Okay, so this is the first time that we are actually doing it, 5 of these in a row, or 4 or 5 of these in a row, all about the college financial experience. So this is just the beginning. This is not going to answer all your questions right today, but every single one of these is going to lead into the next. So if you're really, this is going to be soup to nuts. So if you have an opportunity to make it to most of these, I recommend it highly. This is basically just going to give you the landscape of the college financial, what to think about before you go, what to think about, what to look at, what to take into consideration, what are the things that you have to take into consideration when attending a 4-year university, and so on. I'd also like to thank JP Morgan Chase, who worked with us on this presentation. So this is something that we worked on together. Do you want to say a few words?
Yeah.
Come on up.
How's it going, guys? I'm John Green. I actually am a private client banker at the Chase Bank in Mission Valley. I also help with the partnership with Mesa, so I really thank you guys for allowing me to come today, and then for the San Diego Financial Literacy Center. Fortunately, we don't do student loans at Chase Bank. However, we do provide a lot of education as far as like when you do get those student loans, where to guide you to, and how to manage your money. We have great pieces for that. I did bring some business cards as well too, so if you guys do have any questions and just how to manage money and the best ways to do that, feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah, Chase, thank you very much. Chase Bank and JP Morgan Chase, they are a fantastic partner of the SDFLC. They really help us in helping us accomplish our mission and working with youth and students across San Diego County. So thank you to them very, very much. So I'm going to get started on this because we only have so much time. But basically, what we're going to go over is what's the true cost of education, the advantages and disadvantages of student loans, what are your funding options for education, and the types of sources for financial aid. What is out there for you in a nutshell? This presentation is in the handout. So if you don't get everything as I'm going through this, it is all spelled out there for you. If you have questions as we go through, I will do my best to answer. However, we are limited on time, so I'm going to try to get through this as best as I possibly can. This is kind of an interesting thing. When you think about student loans and you think about the different things, the different ways to finance college, it's kind of looking at holidays, right? So go ahead and take a look at it. You could say Christmas is it the most wonderful time of the year until you get your bills, right? How many people go out and spend lots of Christmas presents, and then come January, you're going, oof, why did I give Aunt Sally? No, I'm just kidding, poor Aunt Sally. Halloween, you feel like you've been tricked. You didn't really understand what you're getting into. You didn't understand that what the interest rates were when you took them out, that I was going to have to pay them only 6 months after I graduated. Those are the kinds of things that you're going to have to look into when you're going forward with these. Thanksgiving, you realize you couldn't have done it without your family and friends. Help, because believe me, that's going to be something you might think about at some point as you go through this. And then April Fool's Day, it's one big joke and or all of the above. And realistically, it's all the above. The reason that we talk about that is when we think about going to college, we think about going to those 3 or 4 or 5 years, however long it takes us, and that we just pay for it however we can. But we don't, most of us, especially when my generation, we just thought about going and we didn't really care how we paid for it. As long as we paid for it and we'd figure it out. And unfortunately, that seems to be the way a lot of students go today. But realistically, school can be so much more affordable if you just look into how you're gonna go about it, and all the different landscapes of thoughts that have to go into this. It can really help you with the amount of money that you spend, where you get the money, and that kind of thing, all right? Because believe me, the list is long. Many students, and believe me, just so you guys know, student loans is going to be covered in great detail in the next 2 financial series. The next one's going to be FAFSA and working out how you fill that incredibly large form out. That's very, very important for you as you go forward. And then student loans will be covered heavily, and then they'll talk about how you pay them back too. So this will be covered, a lot of it. The average college tuition, it's an average, but it can be anywhere from $9,600 for an in-state university, public university, up to $33,480 for private schools. That's just tuition in a year, okay? So we're not even talking about, which I'm going to cover a little bit, but talking about what it costs to actually live there, the total cost of college. What does that mean? So that's something you need to look at. Harvard, USC was over $80,000 a year. This year, that's how much it's going to cost to go to USC, live at USC. So the cost of school is way, way up. I'll give you an example. My alma mater, University of San Francisco, just like USD over here, sister schools, it was $26,000 a year to go there when I went there in 1990. My first year in 91, graduated in 95. It was $26,000 when I graduated. That same university here in 2018 is around $56,000. So it's doubled since I went to school, which is nuts. But that's just kind of where education seems to be going. So looking at the cost of college, there's a couple things that you want to look at. As I just mentioned, there's going to be what the university puts out there. This is the cost of school, right? $33,470. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's what it's going to cost for everyone. Because they're just saying, if you were to come in here without any help, without any, considering maybe your lower income, there's different grants, school's going to cost different for every single person in here. What they are going to show you when you do your research is this is what the sticker price is. It's kind of like going in and buying a car, right? They say it's $4,900, but you might walk out of there for $3,200, right? Just depends on the situation. Now it's a little bit different, obviously, and you don't negotiate college like you do a car or a home, but the idea is the same. Because what it comes down to is the net price. What is it that you actually are going to pay? And this is something that, whether it's scholarships, grants, financial aid, you could have quite a bit of that sticker price paid down, meaning that it's not going to cost you probably nearly as much as what the actual price is. Is there any questions on that? Because that's something that a lot of people, they just don't they go into it, oh, I can't afford that school. That is not true. But I will tell you, more than anything, it is going to take research. And it is going to take your time to figure out what it is that you want to accomplish, where it is that you want to go, and take all the pluses and minuses and go with it. And we're going to talk a lot about that as we go through this today. Yes?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment, for those that are transferring soon, before you make your college choices, you can actually ask the college what financial aid opportunities there are. And then you can compare all your choices. Without question. And that's something that you should take advantage of your counselors at school and trying to figure out. That goes for when you're here. The idea of, I'll talk about myself because I have that a lot in example. But back when I went to school, it was like we just went. And it was like, we go to school because we go to school, and I'll figure out what my major is going to be. Yeah, I'll declare, but I might change my mind 3 times. You don't want to do that nowadays. Because if you change majors, that could add 15 courses to your class load, right? Because not all majors take the same prerequisites. So you need to make sure that any courses that you're taking are leading to what you want to do. That will be the most cost effective. Because if you change, like I had quite a few friends that changed majors in between, they were psychology majors and they decided, nope, I don't want to do this. I'm going to go into economics. There's a big difference, right? So those prerequisites, that added almost another 1.5 years of paying for tuition and board, room and board. So those are things that you really want to do the research, figure out what it is you want to do. Internships help with that a lot. Do I really want to do that? Look into the kind of expertise that you are looking for, that you might want to get your education in. Experience it, because you may find out, I've wanted to be a lawyer my whole life. You go work in a law firm for a summer, you might find out real quick that I don't want to be a lawyer. You don't want to be halfway through your school to figure that out, do you? So that's something you want to really take a look at.
All right, so here are the categories that you're going to want to look at when it goes to figuring out what the true cost of your education is. Obviously, first is the tuition and fees that go into it. And that includes just filling out the applications. Anybody done that yet? They're not cheap, are they? They add up. And you do 4 or 5, 6, 7 of those, they add up real quick. So you're going to look at tuition and fees. You're going to want to look at room and board. Am I going to live on campus? Am I going to live in the dorm? Am I going to live in an apartment or in a house with friends? Am I going to live at home and commute? Which then goes down into transportation, but I'll get there. So those are the kinds of things you're going to want to look at. Look, there are many private universities that mandate that your freshman and sophomore years you have to live on campus. So there's going to, every school is going to have their different rules. So that's something you want to take a look at. Do I want to do this? Or am I a commuter? Do I want to just live in San Diego, go to San Diego State? Those are things that you need to look at. And you can get waivers. I know at USD, they have that. You need to live on campus if you're from out of town, but you can get waivers if you live within a certain mileage of campus, if you happen to live here. So they do that, take it in. Then we get into books and supplies. That can be insane. I know Professor Eskew loves to try to make his classes have the least amount of textbooks as possible, but textbooks are still there, right? And they go up 8 to 10% every year. So it's really, I remember spending thousands of dollars a semester in books, and that was back in the 90s, and that's how old I am. So that's something to look at. Then you're taking a look at the personal expenses. This is huge. We talked, how many of you went to the budgeting course that we did a couple times? How many of you are in the actual financial literacy course right now? Or have done it, have taken it? So so budgeting takes a huge part of that. And just because you're a college student doesn't mean that you shouldn't. Because life on campus, right? The larger the campus too, there's going to be a lot more things available to you that you're going to purchase lunch or food or parking and all those things that go into it is something that you need to take a look at. Transportation. I don't know if you guys have noticed parking around here, but it just gets worse as you go up into the four-year university. Anybody ever tried to park at SDSU? How about USD? There's like literally a quarter of a parking spot per 7 students at USD. That's not a legitimate number, but that's what it feels like. Literally no parking. So when you do get a parking pass, I can know University of San Francisco, we had 500 parking spaces for 7,000 students. So we were in a lottery system if we wanted it. And if we did win, it was $2,000 a year. That was in 91. So that's something, so I didn't even have a car. I just hopefully just walked or biked or something like that. But that was San Francisco too. So transportation was pretty easy. A lot different than San Diego. Did somebody have a question? Nope. Okay. So the cost of college tuition and fees, just taking a look at cost estimates of the different types of schools. So this was 2016-17 averages. There really isn't a standard rate in tuition for any specific university. If you take a look at the California State University system, for instance, you will notice that the costs are not all the same for every single school that's in the California State system. UCSD is a little bit more money than, say, like Cal State Chico, right? It really depends on geographically. It depends on the type of schools that are within the university, the different majors that they offer. Your school is going to depend. If you go into pre-med, it's going to be a different cost than if you're going in as a communications major. It really depends on what you're looking at. So that's something you really want to look at. But your public four-year in-state school typically starts right around about 10 grand. Then looking at the public four-year out-of-state, that's when it really jumps. Out-of-state tuitions is really big. And the other thing that you'll look at when you're thinking about those things is a lot of public universities within different states have different rules when it comes to getting in, right? So for instance, Florida. Florida has a big, it's very, very big on their in-state students, residents. They get a much bigger perk when it comes to the cost of the schools versus somebody out of state. And they allow only a certain percentage of out-of-state applicants to get into their school, so it doesn't take a lot of spaces from Florida residents. So they get precedence, and it costs. it costs a lot. They also talk about international students. It costs a lot more for somebody from out of the country to enroll in a school than it does somebody in state versus even somebody out of state. So that's something really to take a look at. And every school's different. University of North Carolina, I can tell you, to this day it bugs my wife. It was the only school she didn't get in. But that's because they take 90% of in-state applicants and only 10% out-of-state applicants through their school system. That is entirely different than the California state system. And I can't tell you exactly what that number is, but it's different. But I do know that you need to take a look at the different costs perspectives when you're looking at it. Private schools, and this is really interesting. Private schools are obviously on the surface a lot more expensive, right? The average is around 33 grand a year. That's a lot. However, private schools are just that. They're private. So they can do whatever they want to do. So if they want to give one student full tuition just because they like the student, they can. If they want to they have a bunch of different endowments that they want to give somebody 6'5" and taller, and they say, well, he's 6'6", and they want to give him money for that. Obviously that's in jest a little bit, but you get the idea. So you can actually find a lot more money individually at a private school than, say, a California state system, in the fact that there are very, very strict rules within how many, where they can give money. That's not to say that you can't, but I'm telling you, there are so many different types of grants. By sitting down, and we're going to talk about this kind of stuff in the future. This is like an overview, but we're going to talk about this specifically. But the different routes and ways to find money is incredible. There's money for everybody. There are millions and millions of dollars of ungiven grants that are given by the corporate world because just people don't know about them. So searching for different kinds of ways to get money for school, it can be done. It can be done. All right. Any questions on this? Again, these are all on your handouts, so you can take a look at it. All right. Room and board. So room and board obviously is going to depend on what you decide to do. Where you live geographically, right? San Diego, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Orange County, different larger cities are going to be more expensive for room and board. Those universities typically are going to be more expensive just because of just land, right? The amount of people that live here. That goes anywhere. You go to the University of New York University, you're going to try to live in Manhattan. I mean, it's going to cost you, right? But if you go to school somewhere in Kansas, it's more of a great example is Happy Valley in Penn State University in Happy Valley. There's really nothing there but the university, so they cater to students. So it's a lot more affordable for that student to live there during the 4 years than it would be somebody that's moving to San Francisco to go to the University of San Francisco. It's just supply and demand is really the case. So again, that's something to look at. And believe me, when they look at dorm rooms, the different schools, costs for dorms are going to be basically, they're typically cheaper than trying to find an apartment or a house off campus. But there's going to be other costs associated with it, with meal plans and those kinds of things that you want to take a look at and think about when it goes to looking for room and board. But dorm rooms are phenomenal. Look, from a personal standpoint, right? People think, oh, I don't want to live in the dorms. The dorms can be part of the incredible college experience. You meet more friends that way. You meet people like from all different walks of life. It's really, really a great, even if you do it for a year or two, it's really a great experience. And you're on campus. I mean, what better way to take a shower and then walk to campus versus the commute that you might have if you're living off campus and trying to find parking and you drive around for 3 hours. There's something to be said for that, having done both. And talking to younger students that do that now, a lot of them love the dorm experience. Some don't, and some people's lives can't do that. So really what your unique individual experience is what you need to figure out. do you want them to be able to get burritos, or are you just going to hand those out afterwards?
Do you mind that?
Not at all. They're going to get cold. I'd eat them.
A couple things. If you haven't signed in, please sign in. And also, the other really piece of important information is you've got a survey, and that survey, I know you're like, oh God, another survey. The reason we do this survey is so we can get funding so that we can do these type of things and bring you California burritos. So please make sure that you fill those out, and when you leave, drop those off. But right now, there are burritos. My only rule is you gotta take chips too, because I don't wanna have to carry them all around. Okay? So help yourself.
Yep, go ahead. So I'm going to keep talking as you do that, since y'all came for the burritos anyway. Is there any questions that people have about dorm life? What the costs, pluses and minuses? Obviously, if you are somebody that, if you live in San Diego, for instance, your family's here, you decide that you're going to go to San Diego State or something like that, so commuting makes sense because you can live under your parents' roof. Absolutely do that. You've got to do what economically makes the most sense for you. But I will say also, take into consideration that you hopefully only go to college once, and that you get an opportunity to experience the college life. Because too many people think about college as just a means to an education and getting finished. Now, it obviously is going to depend on where you are in your life. But if you're younger and you get an opportunity to really experience the college life, take that into consideration. Because you can live on your own in a home or an apartment for the rest of your life, because that's the way it's going to work for the most part. But if you get an opportunity to be a part of the college experience, to be with your classmates, to have those experiences with the Greek system or clubs or whatever it is, don't let pure economics always make the final decision for you. Take everything into consideration. Being open to new experiences. And you'll notice that public, in-state, like the differences between the differences between public schools and private schools when it comes to dorms and room and board, it's not a gigantic difference. They really aren't. Again, it really has to do with where you are. Where do they reside? Oh, last thing. I put the two-year universities, or two-year colleges. There are two-year colleges across the country that do have room and board, that do have students live on campus. Very, very small number across the country. In fact, in California, I think there's 9 total. And typically in pretty rural areas. Typically they are commuter, they're for your local areas. Books and supplies, this is the kind of things that you're going to have to think about that you are definitely going to need. So things like books, computers, printers, pens, paper, pencils, all those kinds of things. That's stuff that you will have to purchase. Those things that you will need to go on as a normal, everyday college student. You know that already, right? But when we talk about, when it comes to majors, right? Your costs could be completely different when it comes to schools or to supplies, depending upon what it is that you are doing. So becoming an architecture or engineering major, you're going to need a lot more different types of softwares, or you're going to need different types of computer software that you're going to have to look at. Different equipment that you may or may not need when you're a communications major. Not that I'm a communications major. Not that a communications major is not great, but it's not specific. It's very broad, right? You can go with an emphasis in public speaking, PR, media, social media now. There's all kinds of different areas of focus that you can go into. So communications is marketing, extremely broad, right? Where if you go into engineering, right, there's only a few different types of engineering. Architecture, those are specific. Those are things that you're going to need. So the costs of those things are going to vary based on what it is that you want to do. The national average for supplies and all that kind of stuff is around $1,200, $1,300. But again, as I mentioned, books especially books, right, Howard? They go up exponentially every single year. So it's something to think about. Okay, so transportation. Again, a lot of us love our vehicles, especially here in California, and rightfully so. It's freedom, right? Again, if you live on campus and you're living in a dorm, chances are you're still going to, and you have a car, you're still going to have to pay for parking. Parking is going to be exponentially added on top of whatever the cost for your dorms are. So you need to really weigh in. If I'm living on campus, if I'm in a dorm, do I really need my vehicle? Is there, depending on the size of the campus, do I need, and the things that are around it, do I really need to have a vehicle on campus, right? Some are going to say yes. It's really a personal thing. But I can tell you just from experience, again, in San Francisco, where parking is at a premium, I made my decision. There was no vehicle for the first 3 years. I didn't have a car until my senior year. And even then, it was a bigger pain than it actually was freedom, because you're parking on hills like this and on the street. And then if you don't have an L sticker, can't park in an M sticker area. So, and I know that San Diego State is very much like that as well. So you got to buy stickers to leave and park on the street, which costs money annually. So, and that can be, and then let's not forget the parking tickets. I amassed $4,000 worth of parking tickets in my 4.5 years at University of San Francisco, because there were many nights that I'd get home late and the only available parking was a street that was going to have street sweeping the next morning. And I swore I'd wake up at 4 in the morning and remember to move my car. Not very often. And then I would be in my underwear running down the street, chasing after the little Cushman cart who was handing out tickets and the guys that were going to street sweep around my car. So, it can be extraordinarily expensive. That was not something I budgeted for. And how many times I had to go down to the courthouse in San Francisco and pay those stupid parking tickets was pretty crazy. So it's something to think about. Now, if you're commuting, obviously it's a no-brainer. But if you're within reason and you can if you're within a couple miles of school where your parents live and you can take a bus or you can get dropped off, think about it, because parking can be ridiculously. Does anybody tell me off the top of your head, what is parking on this campus a year or a semester? 40. You guys are good shape. You go to San Diego State in that area, it's going to cost you upwards of $200 or $300. In every other school, 400. Thank you. It's going up. Same. I can tell you, depending on the different schools. New York City, if you go to nobody's going to go there, I'm sure, from here. But a friend of mine goes to NYU, or his kid goes to NYU. They don't even offer parking there. So you don't even, living in Manhattan's a whole different animal anyway. But then again, you go to the University of Nebraska. Friends of mine their daughter just got into the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Parking galore, because, Nebraska's very flat. And it's got a lot of available parking, probably in the $40 area. But again, it's going to depend on where you decide to go, right? Take a look at that, though, because it's going to have a unique difference on your budget that you probably never even thought of before. All these ideas and all these things to think about just to go to college, right? But if you plan a little bit, you're going to be in much better shape. All right, so is it a good investment? Do the benefits of college still outweigh the costs? This is a conversation right now. Obviously, with the amount of student debt, there's a lot of talk within our community of, does the amount that we pay for school outweigh the cost of paying it back? And I will tell you from do you mind? Close up. The idea of, look, here's the deal. About 90% of professions now are making college a prerequisite when it comes to professional businesses. Obviously, there are trades, right? And there are lots of good trades. Going to trade school can be a very good thing. if you know you want to run your own plumber's business, a plumbing business, if you want to run electric, and believe me, we need those jobs. I mean, that can make, we all need that stuff. I need to have an electrician come out to my house when it breaks. I can't do it, right? So those kinds of things are very, very good as well. But when it comes to your typical professional job and office atmosphere, a lot of businesses are making college degrees a prerequisite just because of the sheer numbers of people that are applying for jobs. So when you get, I know that when I'm looking for somebody, I'll get 400 applications for one job in about 3 days. Do I have time to look through 400 applications? Unfortunately, no way. So we have to figure out what is it that we're looking for. So when we look and we put down what it is that what the prerequisites of this position are, and one of them is a 4-year degree or like degree, right? If they do not have that in their resume, they get thrown to this pile. I don't even look at them. 1, because they didn't follow directions. 2, because I really, that was a prerequisite. I needed that. So does a degree matter? In the long run, does it mean you're going to make more money than if you don't have a degree? I don't think that that's necessarily true either. I'm just telling you, in this landscape, when it comes to hiring, I mean, shoot, you could have no college, create your own business, and become a multi-billionaire. Happens all the time, right? If you have a product, if you have if you have an idea, you can do whatever you want, and as long as you're perseverant, you can make it. But the college degree can help you a lot. Not only does the college degree help you a lot in your career, but the college experience can help you become an adult. It can really help you figure out who you are, what you can accomplish, what can I do? Because for the first time, especially for you that are younger, you're taking a look at, you're growing up during those years. You're away from mom and dad maybe for the first time. You're making decisions on your own. You're deciding which way you're going to go. This is where the adult change starts to go. Right? I was a completely different person when I graduated than when I went in. Completely different. But we're growing all the time. The idea is, and I believe this wholeheartedly, that a college education and a degree is a huge accomplishment, and it also is going to do a lot for you, especially early in your career. You are going to earn at least 35, 40% more than you would with a college degree. It's just fact. So yes, I think is a clear way of putting it. And I'm not even in education, so I'm not saying that like Howard's going, yes, you do. You want. No, but I am a huge proponent of education. My kids, working them 5th and 3rd grade, college prep all the way. No, I'm just kidding. But they already know the college. You know, this is both mom and I graduated from college. We are going to do our best to afford our children that opportunity because I do believe it's extraordinarily important when it comes to that. So even with the rising tuition, I believe that you will get back exponentially what you put into it. Again, though, does that mean that you just go out and you get $80,000 in student loans? I don't think you should do that right away. I think that if you can look for different financial opportunities, which we will cover in great detail in the next 4 financial literacy, the speaker series, that is something that you really need to do because college, depending on what your background is, where you're from, your unique situation, school could be a lot less expensive for you than your neighbor. It really, every single person needs to do the research though. Take advantage of the resources that you have here on this campus. Take advantage of the resources that you possibly could have on the schools that you're looking at. That will help detail and help you hopefully make the different decisions. Maybe some of you just decide, I'm a big football fan, so I'm going to a university that's got great football atmosphere on Saturdays. That's a nice, hey, believe it or not, that's how my wife decided to go to college. She's a Florida State Seminole, and she decided that because she wanted to do this during Saturdays, so whatever. But there's a lot more to look into it than that. My brother went to the University of Arizona because we visited the campus once in November, and everybody was wearing shorts. So he said, this is where I want to go. Good weather all year round, except in the summer when it's hotter than heck. All right. Is there any questions on that thought process? The idea of, is it worth it? Is it worth the cost? I think everybody who's sitting here obviously realizes and thinks that it probably is. But it's just a matter of finding the right resources. Pros and cons. There are advantages and disadvantages to taking out student loans. And the different. Now, let's take a look at the pros first. Again, as we kind of talked about it, more and more jobs are requiring college degrees. College graduates have more and better employment opportunities. Obviously, it's cast a much wider net when you're going to apply. How many people have recently gone out and applied for different schools? Or, excuse me, applied for different jobs recently on the job board? You ever done the research on just where you can filter down if you're going through some of those job boards and you can filter down no college degree required? Or you notice that it's a much smaller list. That's something that it's going to happen more and more. And you know why? Can anybody answer that? Why is that? Why would more businesses want to have college degrees?
Educated people.
That's a big reason. And what else? Yep.
Oversaturation of college degrees in the market.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. And with that oversaturation, what do they want to eliminate in that area, in that process? Pure numbers. Again, as we spoke about it before, if it's just wide open, we have got to trim down who our qualified applicants are, who we as a company decide is a qualified applicant for this position. If you just kind of cast it as like, if you do this, and if you're a nice person, how many applications am I going to get? That's why we need to really detail it out to get the most qualified applicants for the position that we need to fill. And a lot of that has to do with, what are we getting out of a college degree and a college applicant? One, they followed through with it. That's not easy to do, right? Going through, having all the classes, completing it, that's important. So when you're looking at it, you know that you're going to get somebody that's probably, not always, but probably going to be a little bit more mature, depending on the age that we're looking at and the type of job, because believe me, every position's different. So if we're looking at it could be a position where experience could go a long way in place of a degree. If you have both, bonus for us, right? Young adults learn interpersonal skills in college. Just kind of what I was talking about. Probably going to be a little bit more of a mature. You guys are going to laugh at this, but do you know what one of the biggest things when people are hiring or looking at? When they make a phone call and they're looking for to a past employer or something like that, what do you think the first question we're asking is?
Are they a good worker?
Are they a good worker? What goes into that? We even get a little more detailed than that.
Punctual?
Absolutely. Can we rely on them? Do they show up? Because if they don't show up, if they have a lot of sick days, or they didn't come, we're probably not going to hire that person, because we're hiring somebody. We need them to be there. We want to know that they will show up. And by completing school, whether it's right or not, we look at it like that's an opportunity that they have. They completed it. Now, does that mean everything is always going to be that's always going to add out? Nope. Believe me, I've hired a lot of college graduates that didn't work out. All right, but that's for various reasons. College graduates typically are healthier and live longer. College graduates have lower poverty rates. That is true. And children of college graduates are healthier and more prepared for school. And typically that is the case. Once generation to generation, if parents went to school, typically it kind of filters down both ways. Cons. Obviously, debt forces college graduates to live with parents, or they're going to pay back the loans. There is no doubt about that. I remember when my wife finally paid off her Florida State loans, we did lots of happy dances. It was a big pay raise for our household when we paid those off. I was lucky. I got an athletic scholarship. I didn't have to pay for school. I didn't have to go through that. Lucky for me. My wife didn't have that opportunity. She paid out-of-state tuitions. Her school was pretty expensive. And she didn't have it all paid off by the time we got married. So lucky me, I inherited that. She was worth it. I remember when we paid it off, it was quite the party we threw. Many recent college graduates are underemployed. Yeah, I mean, this is tough. Not always, and this happened, this was even for me, right? When I got out of school, I got out of school thinking, okay, the job market's going to be unbelievably robust. No. It took me like 8 months to find a job right out of school. So, you got to be perseverant, look before you graduate, those kinds of things. Many students do not graduate and waste their own time. That's just, if you're going to go to school, man, go. Remember, every single day you're not going to class, that's costing you. Think about it. Break it down. How much is it costing you per class to go every single day? And think about it, if you don't go that day, did that cost me $37.50? If you think about it that way, you won't miss. All right. So basically, the student loan participation is an important part of bridging the affordability gap. The challenge is knowing which option is best for you. Managing the cost of college is a big issue for students, but everybody, managing life is a big difficulty for a lot of people. Managing college finances is just the beginning. You wait till you have your own home. You wait till you have your family. You wait till you're paying for everything else. And that's why we do this, right? Is if you can learn how to manage your way through college financially, you're going to be ready and better prepared to manage your way through professional life. I guarantee it. Are there any questions that anybody has for me as we go through, as I end this? Because I've been told by Howard that we are done. Are there any questions that anybody has? As I mentioned, this is an overview and what to look at. This is the very beginning. As these financial literacy workshops go on, they're going to get much more in depth on the different things that you're going to want. So when it comes to student loans, if it comes to FAFSA, you're going to get the nuts and bolts of it. So even if you do have questions, I can stick around for a minute, but there's some things that need to be discussed. So thank you all very much. Hold on one second. They got to mic you up here real quick. Okay. Who's going to be speaking? Oh, I know, huh? If you want to. Okay, yeah. I'll just plug this in.
28th is the next session.
And you're all wet, so it feels muggy.
Fill out your FAFSA. How many you know what a FAFSA is? How many you like
And you
it?
can just kind of go down beneath.
Okay, hold on.
You
I don't have pockets. No, I'm a woman. This is our
There is no pockets. Yeah, just
a lot in life.
I should know better.
Student loan. What we're going to do is we're going to help you the next session go over FAFSA, what are the tools that you need, how do you fill it out. Many of you will probably be working with your parents if you still live at home, and you're honestly probably going to have to be able to coach them through it. Okay? So we're going to try to prepare for you for doing that. The other thing is, at the end of all these sessions, just like we're doing now, we're going to give you a small toolkit. So this toolkit is, how many of you guys know what scholarships are? What are they? What are they? What are they? Free money. How many likes free money? Some of you don't. So if you don't like free money, I'll take yours. So we're going to help you. There's a deadline coming up, and they're going to cover that here real quick. But we have streamlined the process this year for scholarships, so it's so much easier. All you have to do is go in and put your information in, and it will actually tell you what scholarships you can apply for. Here's the key. Make sure that you get 2 references. So get 2 references that will do it. So I know that Professor Neiman's class is here. My guess is if you ask her nice, she would do that for you. Maybe. So you ready? I'm gonna turn it back over to you. One other thing, please make sure that you fill out those evaluations and turn them in.
What time's the next?
Same time, same bat channel, same bat place. I know nobody knows Batman. They're always gonna be here, they're always at 11:30.
Are you ready? Hi, my name is Jennifer Park. I'm a graduate intern in the Student Affairs Office, and I'll be talking to you about scholarships, which happen every year around the same time. They open up December 1st. This year they're closing February 19th. I believe that's a Tuesday. So you have a few days left to apply, and I'm just going to walk you through what it is, how to do it, and all the details. So these are the Mesa College scholarships. There are over 50 scholarship programs, and each of these are all governed by different committees. Some of these award programs will actually offer or have multiple awards. So there are more than 50 scholarships actually available, and they total about $180,000 to $200,000. So there's a lot of money to be had. So I'm going to walk you through it, and just so that you can find this on your own later, if you go to our website and just do a search for scholarships, it's the very first link that appears. And this is our Student Affairs site. And you will need to go down to this link, and this will pop up. If you've never applied for scholarships before, you will need to sign up for a new account, and it's free. It's pretty easy. You'll sign up. You'll have to confirm your email address, and you can move on. When you scroll down, you can see all of these scholarships. There's a lot. And all of the deadlines are the same, February 19th. And I'll just show you what happens when you've already created an account. Never. You will create a general application, and it'll ask you basic things like name, email address, student ID, all of these affiliations, date of birth. Of course, I was not born in the 1900s. I've changed all of this. Okay? So I've put in a fake list of characteristics, and there are some honors and awards and leadership things to fill out. Very basic, very simple, and you update the application. And when you do, rather than having to sort through all 50 of those scholarships and read through each of those eligibility requirements, you can actually go up to this, hover over opportunities to recommend it. And based on what you filled out in that general application, it'll recommend a few, or it looks like all of them, some application or scholarships that might be applicable to you. And at this point, you will need to apply separately to all of these. And usually what is required will be some supplemental questions, maybe some supplemental documents. Some of them don't need anything in addition. So just look for those and apply. And of course, you're always welcome to apply to ones that are not recommended to you. So if you think this rubric or thing missed a few, go back and apply for those. So let's take, I said that I was in a fashion program. So let's take a look at what this is. Just picking one out of this lot. So this fashion merchandising scholarship wants you to answer some supplemental questions like, have you performed community service? And you'll see other eligibility requirements, and you will need to apply separately to each one. And just go through it. Usually these aren't very long essays. We're not looking for whole chapters. Usually they're about 300 to 500 word essays. So definitely try this out. And you'll need to finish and submit. So it's a pretty straightforward process. So at the very least, do log in, create an account, and see what's available to you. Let me see some things. So you are able to win as many scholarships as the committees seem that you're allowed to, or you can win as many as you can, but you're only able to accept 3. Okay, so just keep that in mind. If you win 1 or more scholarships, you will be invited to a scholarship gala on April 20th, which is a Saturday. And it's a very nice luncheon at a hotel. and awards, presentation. There will be dignitaries from the district and the college as well.
You get your picture taken.
Yeah. A couple of things to keep in mind when you're applying is that you will need an academic history. Do not pay for transcripts. Okay? Just go onto Reg E, look for your academic history. You can get a PDF of it, a screenshot. If you want, you can just take your personal device or your phone and actually take a picture of your screen and submit that. The point is, don't pay for a transcript. We just need to see all of the information. Just make sure that none of the information is cut off. Okay? Another thing is that you may need to get 1 or 2 references. Just make sure that reference knows that he or she will be receiving an email from Academic Works. It might be in the spam box, and just make sure they know it's Academic Works so they don't think it's junk mail. And we had a few rumors going around that the references themselves need to submit their information by the someday in March, but it is February 19th. So if you've seen this presentation elsewhere, just or if you've already applied, make sure you update your references to let them know it's due on the 19th. So everything is due on the 19th. I think that's about it. Another final thing that we just found out is that don't use Internet Explorer for this. A lot of buttons and functions are useless on Internet Explorer. I recommend Chrome or Firefox. That's pretty much it. Do we have any questions?
So how long on average does it take to complete this process?
The general application, I filled it out in about maybe 15 minutes, but I did not list my awards and things.
So is an hour fair if you complete the essay?
I would say that might be, an hour might be good.
Okay, so what is the range of scholarships? 250 to 1,000?
I've seen some, well, we can take a look actually. I've seen one for $20,000. I'll do a scroll down. There's 500, 400, 250 to 500, 300. There's one for up to 1,000.
While she's doing that, the other thing you need to keep in mind, these scholarships, some of them give multiple scholarships. So it's not just, there's going to be one winner. There are some scholarships that it's 10, 15 winners because that's the way it's set up.
I'm on the scholarship committee where it's between 250 to 500, and we could give out 2 scholarships for 500 each, depending on who applies. Also, shameless plug for the LRC. If you've used our services, I work here. You turn in your application for a scholarship for the LRC, the library. Basically, you just have to write an essay about your experience using the library. You can give like $250, like what an impact it's made on your life.
How many guys work? So let's say the average scholarship award is $500, and it takes you an hour. So how much are you making an hour by doing this? How many of you guys make on your job $500 an hour? Maybe it's worth an hour of your time, huh?
How would I stand corrected? We're giving 500 to 1,000.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, awesome.
So if you can actually search for this, and that's what I did. In all the scholarships, you can do a search, and I just looked up LRC, and boom, there it is. Yes?
Like on average, I mean, like what is the chances that you win a scholarship?
That's hard to say, because we would have to see who applies, how many apply, and what they apply for.
Well, how many apply on that?
We don't know yet. Yeah. I do believe that
Maybe the better answer is this. Last year, we weren't able to give all the money away.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
So I took what was left.
Then why are you promoting it?
Yeah, thank you so much for this demonstration because it's super valuable. And I have to say, I have a little bit of a bias biased opinion because, I'll introduce myself. My name is Krista and I serve on the foundation. We're administering a lot of these scholarships, but I can very much appreciate Howard, the math behind, none of our scholarships are less than $250. So for an hour of your time, you're at the minimum making $250 for an hour. And again, I mean, that is, I think more than, that's like what an attorney makes, right? So.
The other thing that you need to know, we want to give this money away. We don't want to hoard it. We have lots of money, and we want to give what we can give away. But you know what? Who's in control of that? You are, because it depends on whether or not you apply. So it's really important that you do that. So we need to wrap this up so we can be, respect your time. I'm going to say one more time, please turn in your surveys, because this whole new series is because of last series you told us you wanted this. So we listened to you. So don't forget, in 2 weeks, on Thursday the 28th, in this building from 11:30 to 12:30. Thank you.